Welcome to another episode of Talkin Shop. I'm Justin Castelli, CEO of RLS Wealth Management. And this is my buddy Tyrone Ross. You guys already know him. We are wrapping up our stay here at the Inside ETFs in Hollywood, Florida at the Diplomat Hotel. And Tyrone and I have been talking about this, and I also want to give a quick shout out to our friend Douglas Bonaparte because he's been a part of this conversation. We have a Friday morning meeting. He's been a part of the conversation. He just happens to be home with his pregnant wife, being a good husband and good father. But we've talked about on our Friday calls kind of addressing an elephant in the room when it comes to our industry. Blair Ducanay recently had a post about the lack of women in our industry, and it kind of opens up the conversation about diversity and inclusion in our industry. And the three of us have talked about it, and I am a white, middle-aged male coming from a middle-class family, and I have had every privilege in the world, whether it be personally or in this industry. So it's kind of hard for me to comment on it, but I think my role in all of this is trying to facilitate the conversation and bring that to the forefront, which is what we kind of talked about with the three of us. So I'm going to kind of shut up and let Tyrone take it from there, but this is a conversation that I think we should have continuing ongoing, and my hope is this just starts more conversations within the industry and everywhere. But with that, I'll let you kind of go.
First of all, as I always do, thanks for having me. I appreciate you for having me on. Second thing is, y'all don't get distracted by my shirt. I understand it's a little wild, but to get right into it, right? You mentioned being a middle-aged male. I'm a middle-aged black male, right? And we're at a conference where it's male-dominated. So I think the first thing to address is simply the privilege of being a male in this industry. You have an upper hand. So I think that's one of the things that's not talked about a lot, and it's not talked about enough. But I think as men, having conversations with each other, networking with one another, seeing one another all the time, it's really easy to get comfortable being the only ones in the room all the time. So you're not in that uncomfortable element of everyone not walking, talking, and looking like you. So for me, it's a very personal topic. I think for anyone that is a minority in this business, based on some of the experiences that I've had, and I'm sure some females have had, and other people of color have had in this business, it's an ugly side of the business. It's a side of the business that unfortunately I don't think has gotten better. I think conversations like this will aid that, and these conversations didn't want to be had before, but I think off camera there's been a lot of conversations had with people who are willing to have a conversation and just learn and be open to having their views challenged, and to be open to expressing their views without being chastised or ratioed, right, so to speak, of them just simply saying, I'm ignorant, I don't know. Not ignorant in the sense of I know and don't care, but ignorant in the sense of I had no idea that was something that was offensive or something that I didn't know that I shouldn't bring up in a room full of people that are similar to me, and someone may not be, and I offend them. So.
And a perfect example is as we were walking down, you were talking about one of the presentations we just saw that had a series of slides relating to ETFs, and it was cars and marriages, and then the final one was treating malaria, and the only slide that had people of color was the one about malaria. And to be honest with you, we're riding down the escalator and you said that did not even register in my mind as I was watching that slide. That didn't even register. So that, to your comment about being honest and being willing to say that I'm ignorant, like I'm ignorant to the fact that didn't even pick up in my mind.
Right.
That wasn't even registering with me.
So that right there is the beauty of diversity. When you're around other people who don't think like you or can see things that you don't see, they could point things out that you don't notice. And that could be an investment opportunity, that can be an employment opportunity, that can be a learning opportunity. So yes, that was glaring, and it's conditioning, and it's been happening. And I mention it all the time. We turn on the television and we look at CNBC, all we see are white men speaking on the market. So people of color feel like, well, that's not for us. And you drive down the highway and you see a picture of a retirement and you see a white family and the house, and black folk feel, or Spanish folk feel, or Indian folk feel, or Asian folk feel, oh, that's not for us. So I think being more inclusive and having those conversations, just pointing that out, right? And as you mentioned, it was, a white couple getting married, it was a white couple, in the home, and then you get to, the malaria part of those in need, and it was a family, it was a man, feeding his wife and his kid, through a container of water and talking about malaria. That's conditioning our minds and what we are to believe of what people of color look like, and then what others look like when it comes to any type of financial abundance or lack thereof.
So we brought it to the table, and not that this is not a topic that people don't talk about, but sometimes I think about like the diversity panels or diversity groups that organizations put together. I think that sometimes it's just to say that we're doing it, that we're trying to address this problem. And look, we had one small panel that we talked about diversity.
Yeah.
That doesn't really solve the problem. And I think it was either you or Douglas on our conversation said, this isn't going to change in our lifetime,
Right.
but it's going to, it won't be fixed in our lifetime, but hopefully we can start changing it. So
Right.
that being said, we've put the issue out on the forefront,
Right.
Talking about it and not trying to be just surface level.
Mm-hmm.
How do we continue this? How do you and I and our buddy Brendan Malloy is here? How do we continue this conversation and actually start to make some change so that maybe there is the possibility that in our lifetime we redo this video and we can talk about the progress that we've seen and that there's been great change?
Great question, and it's a very nuanced answer, and it goes beyond the scope of this video, and it needs to be ongoing. But I encourage everyone to just stop and think about your preconceived notions of those of another gender, of those of another race, and be open to bringing other people into your conversations who don't look like you, who don't think like you, right? Who don't have some of the same cultures and views, and see what that means, right? We live in an echo chamber, right? Especially on Twitter and with people, we tend to like things that confirm our biases and things like that. But I think the one thing is, I always challenge my friends who are white. Like, am I your only black friend? Like, if you're not around me, are you around black people? And they've been told, no, I'm not. Like, you're literally my only black friend. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but right, get around other people and make that comfortable. And it doesn't have to only be black folk, it could be anyone. So I think that's the first step. The second step is, people always say, is it a pipeline issue? I had an interview talking about that as well. Yeah, it's a pipeline issue, but you have to address the pipeline issue, right? So just like prospecting, 101 in this business, I want to go after a particular market, I have to go where that market is. I have to play in the street of where that market is. So if we're not going to HBCUs, if we're not going to the places where we need to diversify the look and the pool of applicants that don't look like the traditional Wall Street advisor, then we have to, again, be honest and say, hey, have we really tried to go into these markets and recruit these people and educate them about this business? Last one, and most importantly, I go into inner city schools every single chance I get, and little black and brown boys and girls do not even know that this is something they can do. They have no idea. As I said, I will raise my hand and say I was 26 years old when I knew that the stock market existed. That is a disaster. Not only did that hurt me, it hurt my family, and luckily I caught it, and there were people who poured into me, white men, mind you, right? White men who took the time to pour into me and say, hey, this is what money is, this is what investing is, we're going to teach you the business. So for me, it was very reflective upon me, again, and this goes both ways. As people of color, it's twofold. One, and women as well. Women of color, men of color, all people who are a minority in this business. When you get the opportunity, you have to be very well. Yes, we have to shine. We just have to be extra. We have to look the part. We have to be the part. But also, when you get that opportunity, you can't take it with a chip on your shoulder, right? You can't take it with a chip on your shoulder. You have to address it, be honest with people and say, thank you for letting me in. Thank you for this opportunity. But we can't then turn on the people who, regardless of whether you like it or not, they still have the power. So when you get in these rooms and you sit with people, you want to be open, you want to have honest conversation, and I always do it. Thank you for letting me in this room. You may have checked the box. I don't care, but I'm going to be so good. One, you bring me back, and two, I need you to realize I'm in here, but there are a group of people that are invisible behind me that I am the voice for. I speak for them because they can't speak for themselves. And I think if you were to be at this conference, if you were to look at Wall Street, something that I care deeply about is crypto. The people in this country, not only in the inner city, rural communities, are ignored for whatever reason. We can get into in another video, but those people are ignored, and as financial advisors and people who understand the fundamental basics of money, which is the lifeline of all life, if we can't help these people get to understand that, that's a failure for all of us, right? We're supposed to be one, we're all supposed to be inclusive, so we have to bring each other up. And one last example. I was having this conversation with Brendan, who's off camera. We were talking about, and Paul Tudor Jones was talking, great presentation, and he was talking about how the majority of the gains from stocks and the shareholders, gets paid back to shareholders through, buybacks and dividends and all that other stuff. And he was introducing an ETF with companies, right, that are consciously aware and focused on, employee wages and things like that. But there's 60% of folks in the country who don't even own stocks. So we should turn the focus a bit and focus on those people. And unfortunately, the majority of those people are people of color. And you talk about income inequality in this country, the black folk were recently overtaken in terms of income equality by Asians. So the greatest disparity of wealth in this country between the blacks that have and the blacks that don't. So again, it's community issues, it's racial issues, but I think conversations like this help. But we got just like everyone wants to get in and talk to kids about money young, and I'm a big believer in that. We also need to make sure that they understand that this is something they can do. Being a financial advisor, a hedge fund manager, a portfolio manager, a certified financial analyst, these are things that an inner city kid in Compton or Camden, New Jersey, these are things that you can do. And it's incumbent upon all of us to make, to give a little bit back to make sure that they're aware of that. That's a long rant, I'm sorry.
And I think we leave it at that. I have nothing to add to that other than I hope that we can continue this conversation offline on Twitter, do another one of these videos to build upon. I don't know where this goes, but I just thought it was something that I felt was important for us to take our conversation from Friday morning and put it out there and see what happens. So I hope that it continues. I hope we do another video. There's more to it, and who knows what will come from it. But I thank you for opening this conversation up.
Thank you for having me.
And giving us some insight that obviously I don't have.
Right.
And that's just because of my life experiences.
And kudos to Blair as well. That was a great piece, and I think she stood her ground. And I had no problem with the headline. I kind of liked it. Sometimes you got to have something like that to poke people in the back a little bit to get them to straighten up and listen.
Spark conversation.
Kudos to you, Blair.
Brings the change. So thank you for watching. A little bit longer, but I think it was an important video. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you think. If you have other things to add to the conversation. And like I said, we'll see where this goes. But this hopefully is video one of a number of videos over the coming years about this conversation and moving things forward. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Free jewelry.